So like I mentioned off the top, I thought this weekend was a real win for the city of Toronto. Awesome All-Star weekend. And it was especially good because I got to see Justin Bourne's handsome face when I went down to NHL Fanfare. I saw him do work. Got to catch up with his son. Got to see his lovely wife. What's up? What's up, buddy?
What's up, Alex?
You flew
good
out
to
of there,
see you.
though.
I know my son was the most excited person to be there, I think.
Yeah, he was happy. But, okay, this sounds so stupid. Are you ready for the dumbest thing ever?
Let's have it.
Sometimes I forget that the All-Star Game's for kids. And then I went to the fanfare and I walked around and I went, oh, right. This isn't this is for your son. He's the one who's going to want to fly around and bomb around and do the events and see this game and see all the stars and see the mascots that are coming through there and having the mascot game. It's for them. But I will say this. Can I just say one other thing?
Yes.
It's a little bit for us.
I think the context has to be, that it's not like a gladiatorial, we're going to get answers about who the best really are type of contest. It's like, let's watch all the great guys at once. So, that's all it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would just say that, you know how the best thing going right now is, I always screw this up, whether it's Pixar or Dreamscape or whatever they're called. What is it called?
Yeah,
DreamWorks. DreamWorks. Anyway, I can never get them separated from one another, but both of them do a great job.
Fault.
But that's what I mean. And I love them all. Like there's genuinely, you could actually, I'm not trying to play dumb here with the names. I've seen so many. I almost just cried during Elemental at Christmas where I watched it with my family. And I was like, I'm not crying about the store that they're trying to run, right? The Flames, I get it. I love those things. But you know why those are good? It's because if you're a little kid, you can watch them and you can enjoy them. And if you're an adult, you can watch them and enjoy it. And that's where I think the NHL All-Star weekend has to go.
All right. Love that. I think that's a really great comparable. Can you have some nuggets in there for the grown-ups while you're serving up the poop jokes?
And that's what I think end up happening this weekend for me. And that's why I want to get into some All-Star Game winners and losers. And so I actually asked you to do homework for this show.
Did you?
Well, I've said, could you please get some winners and losers? But if you didn't, that's okay. I have plenty to share.
I mean, I have some.
Yeah,
yes.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So do you want to start with a winner or a loser from All-Star Weekend?
I'll go first and say the obvious one off the top is the city of Toronto. We had an absurd run of weather here that felt like, I hope that people left Toronto and were like, oh, that's what it's like in February, because it absolutely is not.
Yeah.
But it did give people a chance to actually get outside and walk to and from locations and not it really helped the city out that we had a decent weather weekend. And then the fact that the product was pretty good. The fans were great, even booing Kucherov. Like they actually showed some engagement. So, points for the city of Toronto.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was my opening monologue, essentially, is trying to gush about the city and how proud I was. But so much of it really was, this is such a Canadian thing, is it was really connected to the weather and what you could wear outside. And people could wear their
like
nice...
the NBA All-Star Game, didn't they get minus 30?
Yeah, it was genuinely insane. I went to a nightclub for an NBA All-Star event, which was still one of the funniest nights of my entire life. And thank God I didn't have to wait in line, because just going from the cab to the inside of the bar, just that, 1 minute, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I was, and I was.
We lost free agents that weekend.
Yeah. I was like, oh, free agents, everyone. It was a national disgrace. It really was. It was a national disgrace. So I'm totally with you. Okay, since you mentioned the Bruins, or actually, sorry, you didn't. You mentioned they booed Kucherov. I'll just go with the booing in general, or the back and forth in general for this weekend. I thought it was a big win for Pasternak and the Bruins' pseudo-rivalry with the Leafs. The Leafs team ends up winning the All-Star game, and who cares, right? Other than the fact that you say, hey, the hometown team won, that stacked all the guys together, nice for them. Hey, if you guys want to try to fight over every single dollar and cent on your contracts, it would be nice to see you try at the event where you can get a little bit extra money in your pockets. But David Pasternak hitting them with the, quote, good for them, they needed some wins, end quote.
Yeah.
There's not I don't really believe in rivalries when they're that one-sided, but this is Original Six. They're clearly the big brother to the Leafs, and I love that Pasternak showed his hand a little bit of, we do still think about you guys a little bit. We do still want to mock you guys a little bit. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that quote.
Well, how about the coach of Boston, Jim Montgomery, says about Willie.
Yes.
He goes, even Willie was talking about back checking, and then after a pause, didn't expect that.
Yeah.
They think, it's one of those things where it's like, getting a shot from an ex or something. Like, they still think about the Leafs for sure.
Yeah, and split up Matthews and Marner in an effort to win.
That in itself is like an extra little barb at the Leafs.
That's what I'm saying. It was basically those three things that really worked. I really enjoyed it. It was a perfect little subplot to the weekend. Anyways, your turn.
Well, that played out well. I thought Matt Barzal can take a win here. I talked to some people with the league who basically said that Barzal was like the 13th, 14th, 15th guy, but like called and like hectored his way in. Basically, it was like if basically got himself up the list. He wanted to be in the skills contest, so he found a way. I forget who dropped out. Whatever, he ends up getting in. He plays. He's awesome. Shows all his skills in the All-Star game. Ends up being on the winning team, but also in the goalie skills thing, he picks Shesterkin. As the Islanders guy, he picks the Rangers goalie, and he lit him up pretty good. I thought that was like a nice little subplot for rivalry land, too.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll say this. I have this as a winner/loser, and that is all of NHL Skills Friday. It was a winner because it really felt like the moment of the weekend. I'm actually curious to hear about, you being there with your kid and how engaged he was in a lot of the events, but it felt as though the actual... hey, there's $1 million on the line. So show us what you can do across all of these events was a real hit. Like, I was genuinely engaged, and I was watching it and seeing, who was going to end up where. Here's why it's a loser, though. McDavid showed us exactly who we've all been saying he is. It was very much Larry Bird at the three-point contest saying who's going to come in second. And then he wins 4 of the 6 events. And the only reason I say it's a loser is not because in that moment it was a great win. It was a great showcase of McDavid. Great win for hockey just to say, hey, this is our guy. He won this event. But I did go, but what do you do next year? Because this will happen again. Like, if this is for another $1 million, who's to say Connor McDavid doesn't win this every single time?
He should. The ESPN in particular is a star-making machine. Like, if you live in the U.S. and you follow U.S. sports enough, you're aware of this. But, like, they don't sell games, teams, cities. They sell stars. And, for the NHL to have McDavid in the big moment be LeBron and step up and, and perform. And I think he's getting better on the mic. Like, I thought that was great. I see your point. Like, that doesn't feel like there's a direct competitor there for him. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for the league. Having been there, I will say that the event, the whole evening, it was great. It just took a little while to warm up.
Yeah.
Like the first, they really let the lag time between events and setting up and whatever, like it just needed to be tighter to keep a 7-year-old engaged. Like between an event, you know what it reminds me of in golf? There are guys who take a long time to hit the ball and the guys who do it quickly, but when the other guy is hitting his shot, that's when you do all your prep. That's when you get your yardage, your club, your practice swing. So it's your turn, you're up. That was not the case in this event where it felt like, okay, one guy went, then the next guy came off the bench, skated to the mark, talked to the people. Like, it just needs to be a tighter affair. But it really got going once it got to, all right, we're into hardest shot, accuracy shooting, and the shootout was the best part. What an unbelievable event that was, and the obstacle course came through as a pretty cool closer too.
Yeah, I thought it looked spectacular, but I will say that even as someone who was watching it in the bars on TV, I went, how late is this now? It kept going from...
Well, that was an issue for sure.
Well, just in terms of drawing it out, how long do you want it to be sort of thing on the Friday night? Because this is what I'm saying about the Pixar part of this, the Pixar quotient. If you're going to keep the kids engaged at the event, you're right. You have to have things happening a little bit more in the arena. And I don't know what they were doing.
You can't close with the mascots. We had to go home. Like, we couldn't stay for the mascots at 10:30.
Mascots. Mascots at 10:30. I feel like mascots should be in between.
First
and in between the events, right? Like, yes. That's where that's got to land. So maybe a little bit of tightening up there. You're right. But overall, I just thought, I was way more interested in skills this year than just about every other year. Like, truly. Yeah. I really did care a little bit more. I thought that McDavid stepping up and going 4 for 4 on the targets with $1 million on the line, I went, oh, that felt like a moment, right? That felt like when we were growing
remember
up.
that. That's for sure. That's a moment.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You know, the one thing I will say is, in terms of like winners and losers, the Kucherov thing where he just fails outright.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it doesn't go well early, so you just mail it in because you're not going to win. And he was the only guy to really do that. But I think he has the curse of even when he's trying, it doesn't look like he's trying. So it just came off flippant. So I'll give him the nod for a loser, but he at least played into it well and played the villain and engaged the crowd a little bit.
Okay, I actually have a theory on this. I think he did that because Russia was not a part of the Four Nations Cup, and there was murkiness around Russia's participation in the Olympics moving forward. And that news came down right before Skills Friday. And I just wonder if he tanked it as like a silent protest, because he is the guy that I don't know, because he plays NHL games like that sometimes.
Exactly.
He's the weirdest player, because when you see him when he's on, you go, oh, actually, that's it's him, McKinnon, and McDavid at the very.
Yeah, he's first in the NHL in points.
Yeah, exactly. He's an incredible talent. I think it was McKinnon. McKinnon says he's his favorite player. Like, he's like, I love him. If you ask any of the top guys, that's our favorite guy, and you can see why.
McKinnon could not have him on his team, though. He'd go mental with that sort of body language.
He would never be able to handle that. But I wondered if that was potentially a thing for Kucherov.
I'll say this: it's a good connection to make, and I won't dismiss it outright. I don't think it's the case, because it's rarely a good convincer to be like, hey, we want to be in that thing. Now I'm going to make it easy to make me dispensable.
Yeah, I don't think it's a convincer. It's like, hey, we really care. Like, remember when there were rumors that Ovi was not going to even play in the NHL if they didn't let him play the Olympics?
Well, he said he's going regardless. So
that was what it was, right? I just think Kucherov has now become the face of Russians in hockey, and I wondered if he was kind of picking up that mantle, and that was his moment to do that with the NHL. And
I think he just sucked, but I think it's a worthwhile note. I'm not going to rule it out.
Here's my true feeling. I think it's both. I think that he was probably pretty pissed about the Russia stuff, and then he also went, I don't really care about this, and I'm not really going to try. Okay, but
like once you blow a wheel and McDavid's behind you going Mach 6, it's like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That was the funny part. I was watching McDavid skate and superimposed all the other players, and I'm like, guys, okay,
see you later.
Yeah,
I know it is, and I know this is Toronto radio, and I know I have a Leaf show, but it is once again a little embarrassing, the Matthews and McDavid debates. He had a better season than him for sure, but it's like the one guy is just a different skill level.
Yeah. No comment. I've said it so many times. It's the most Toronto thing ever, because we're so hyper focused on the Leafs and we watch so many Leaf games. And then, to me anyways, the Oilers are actually the team I watch the second most. But whenever I watch the full game, it's such a stupid but obvious take where I walk away from it going, God, he's so incredible. And very few players in sports leave you with that feeling like McDavid does on a night in, night out basis. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I will say, to Matthews' credit, accuracy shooting, unbelievable. Came through in the game. The one-timer he hit for the game winner was pretty unbelievable. So great showing all around by the Leafs. Yeah. I had Morgan Riley at $20, pays $1,400 for MVP. That didn't come through, but otherwise it was a pretty good weekend.
I felt really stupid trying to find value on other guys than McDavid for the skills comp, and then realizing 10 seconds in, like, oh my God, I could have gotten McDavid at plus money for a skills comp. Yeah, I was like, this was the worst financial decision of my entire life.
I'll never recover from this.
Honestly, it was genuinely the first event, 10 seconds in, oh God, I've made a huge mistake. I should have
have I done?
I should have just picked the chalk. And I saw everyone did it that made gambling picks for it. That you go across the board, they were all trying to get cute with who they thought was going to win, because no one wants to pick the chalk. Like, that's not fun. But
you don't look like a genius doing that.
No. But guess what? You should have just done it. Okay, but that brings me to a winner. I'll just say that it's Canada-USA hockey rivalry. Okay, the Olympics is coming back. Best on best is coming back. The Four Nations Cup is going to happen, which I think is cool that we're going to get that right away. And yes, with all due respect to all the other nations and with all due respect to everyone, the biggest question in hockey is how close have the Americans gotten to Team Canada. And how great could this rivalry have been had we had it for, the last decade that we've been missing it. It's the biggest oversight by the NHL. I think that we've been offenders in general as sports people to overstate the impact, I think, at times of international events, right? But to this country, like if you're our age, the most meaningful sporting moment is unquestionably Vancouver, right? It's unquestionably the golden goal. And to have those moments come back between Canada and the USA, hey, this is for the pride of Canada. Hey, this is the American cockiness, bravado of we think we're better than you and we're going to steal your one thing, is incredible drama. And I'm so unbelievably excited that we're going to have this back.
Just going to pound the U.S. when we do bet for a happiness hedge because I can't watch it. You're not going to do it.
No shot.
The terrifying thing, the first thing that all Canadians did, and I think you know what I'm going to say, is just talk about goalies right away. Yep. It was just like the first thing was watching the skills of the shootout. And, out there on the ice is Thatcher Demko, Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck, and we're like, Connor Ingram? I don't know, like Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon down the gut. I mean, you're unbelievably loaded, but like someone's got to stop it. We got a year or two to figure it out. We need a hot goalie.
I got to tell you, first of all, I like what I've seen from Martin Jones in the least. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I am sneaky a believer in the Jordan Binnington in big games thing and thinking that he could get up for this. I'm just a bit of a believer. I'm a bit of a believer that we'll be fine. To me, I will say, and McKee's been on this for quite some time, but watching the way McKinnon plays and the way McDavid plays and Sid in terms of we still have that from that generation. I'm very worried about the next one because I've seen it at the juniors where it feels like Canada has lost the we actually play different edge. And people are going to say that's an exaggeration or whatever, but I do worry about
because Bedard's nasty, but he's like Jack Hughes. He's not like McKinnon.
Yeah, exactly. Like we care way more. We're going to outdog you quotient that we're still going to have that for the next couple of generations or for this generation. The next one, I don't know. But for this one now, having McDavid, McKinnon, and those guys at the top still carrying the torch, I'm not as nervous about it as I once was. Let's just put it that way.
No, I don't think it's particularly a fair fight up front. But
no,
yeah, it's hockey and goaltending happens.
Yeah, that's the scariest part. Okay, here's my favorite winner of the weekend. Okay, Justin Bieber.
Oh, winner! You give him a winner nod.
Massive winner. Here's what I have to say about Bieber from the weekend. Not only does he go out and crush on Thursday night. Yeah, I think it was Thursday because I missed it. Yes, it was definitely Thursday night. Goes out and crushes on Thursday night. He becomes the artist of the weekend. He's a little quiet at the draft, and people are curious about what's going on here. He shows up. He's got the big red coat, and he's in the dressing room, and he's very friendly with the players. But here was my feeling about Justin Bieber. He has something that is so unique right now, which is he genuinely cares about the Toronto Maple Leafs and about hockey. Like, he cares deeply about it.
I think he was a little nervous to be around all those guys in that environment.
He wore the full gear going out there for warm-ups, and guys are taking pictures with him, and he was just thrilled to be there. And listen, Drake is a great ambassador for the city and for the Toronto Raptors. There's just no question about it. But the thing with Drake is that he also rides with Alabama football. You know, he rides with Duke basketball. Yeah. Like, whatever the big thing is, Drake's name is, he has a Kevin Durant tattoo, for God's sakes, you know, Steph Curry tattoo. He's kind of like, I'm there for everyone. Bieber was just when you saw him walk into the dressing room, and he's just excited to see the Maple Leafs players. He says that this is a dream for him to be able to do this. You can see the child in Bieber. And I think in terms of trying to sell the game to younger people and try to have some sort of passion about it and love for the game and love for the sport, I think that they can look at Bieber and say, this guy isn't just here collecting a paycheck. With all due respect to other people that have come through and do these celebrity appearances and all-star games, this guy is just here because all he loves is hockey. He loves the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was a kid, and you sort of see that passion come through. So big win for Bieber, big win for the sport. I've been saying
that Arnett and Bublé might have been better. They were unbelievable.
I think Bublé was amazing. Arnett, I felt as though it was like, I feel bad for the funny guys when they're in a position where it's like, be funny the entire time at humorless events. Let's just say I felt for him.
I thought he was great. I think his energy and his love for it too is very real.
Agreed.
Yeah, I couldn't appreciate him anymore. I watched some of that Smart List podcast on the on Netflix where he actually the actual video version, and just like every chance he gets to talk about the Leafs, like he's genuinely so about it. It's fascinating to have people like that involved, and again, I think it's good for the sport. Honest question, and this is going to probably be dumb. Those guys get paid? They get paid for that weekend?
For sure.
That's a ton of their time to give.
No, they definitely get paid.
A ton. Yeah, they should.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not
they
an
don't.
opposition.
Look at you. This is a classic rich guy position to be taking right now, by the way. It's Justin Bourne. He's like, do they get paid? It's a lot of time. It's a lot of rich guy time. Like, yeah.
Their time's valuable, dude. They could be somewhere else.
No, they're
They don't
definitely
need to be there.
They're definitely getting paid. They're definitely getting paid. And I just think with Bieber, he's the face of hockey fandom now, and he does it in a way that is very different from everybody else. And that's just with the pure joy, the pure enthusiasm, the wanting to be involved. And now, like, I go back and I think about Chris Pronger, who I had on, and hitting him in the Celebrity All-Star game, him taking the full warm-up, the excitement that he showed. I went, you know what, man, you're great for this. And
that could have been super lame to take in the warm-up thing, but it wasn't.
No, that's what I mean.
He was great. He took his pics with everyone. And also, I want to go on record as everyone is like, how about that coat? I genuinely like that coat.
It was a great coat.
I think that's
like
a cool
the pants.
coat. Like, it's... What's that?
You need the pants with the coat. I get it. I'm not cool. I'm old. But I loved the pants looked hilarious to me. The coat.
Like, there's no setting to wear that jacket for me.
Yeah.
That's only as the coach of an NHL All-Star game celebrity can you wear it.
Yeah.
But I like the jacket. It's cool.
If you're Justin Bieber, you can wear cool clothes. If you're me, if I showed up to the office,
I show up to work in that. Everyone's like,
no, that's not a workable thing. By the way, I just got to say also, winner. Microdosing mushrooms, because of an honest, innocent guy who makes his entire living off of, crooning for old ladies and hawking soda water, can take mushrooms in a public place, so can you.
Buddy, I am downtown Toronto. I live 3 minutes from a place called Fun Guys that sells medicinal mushrooms. That has, the horse has left the barn on the little doses of drugs for people.
I think he's kind of a tier above, too, where that even touches him. Like, do you agree?
What's that?
What
do you mean?
Well, I was having a conversation with someone about...
doesn't phase his reputation.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
No.
I think he's above it. I don't think that matters. I don't think that, the soda water goes, hey, you're not the face of us anymore, Michael, because you take the mushrooms.
Yes, I am. True.
I got to say, it was definitely a hilarious and honest moment of mushrooms, because mushrooms do bring out the honesty in you, but also so great that he said it was a microdose. It's definitely not a microdose. That is the experience with mushrooms at its best, is when you're like, my friend just told me that it wasn't really going to do too much, but here I am now in it, and I need to tell you about that right now.
I need to get it ahead of this you're like, what is that guy on? I'll just tell you.
Exactly. I thought it was brilliant. It's going to be my most memorable moment from All-Star Weekend. Do you have a winner or loser, or you want me to go?
Go ahead, pal. I think I'm tapped out.
Okay, great. I've got two more losers, and that's it. Loser. The NHL trade deadline.
Oh, God. That's a great loser. Yes, you're right.
It is the NHL's biggest day. And I know it's changed, and I know TV is changing and everything. It's like, there's the dynamics of modern sports are evolving, and sports television products. But the NFL has the draft, right? As it's, hey, everyone gets together and we have the draft. This is a big deal. The NBA, similar thing, and now they have just basically the entire offseason, right? Where there's all this curiosity about player transactions. It's now bled into the season. They've done a great job of doing this. Like, we've got NBA trade deadline this week, and it does feel like, man, either some big names could be moved. Like, we're talking about LeBron James stories. I don't think he will get traded, but still, like, that's in the conversation. The NHL had trade deadline day. Like, July 1st is never that enticing. It's usually a couple of names that end up, now we all accept, especially in the hard cap era, that it's an overpay. It's difficult to do. We had NHL trade deadline day where you would want to fake sick and be home and spend all day watching sports. See what talent, where is Justin Bourne going to sit on the desk? This mattered the most. And now you have the biggest name by far off the board a month in advance, and then Monahan also gets traded from it's 2 or 4 Canadian markets involved in all of this stuff. And now you're looking at the quote-unquote trade boards, and you've got to talk yourself back into Chris Tanev being the face of the NHL trade deadline as of today, a month out. It's a really tough thing for the NHL that business is getting done earlier and earlier and earlier, and that this is the way that we're going with the trade deadline.
It is, but it should be encouraging that I think a lot of the market forces that have dictated this sort of lack of movement and early movement are related to the just absurdly jammed salary cap, which, likely won't happen again. Like, it's going to take a couple of years to get away from this to where every team has breathing room from the salary cap. If it goes up $4.5 million for 2 straight years and all of a sudden everyone tacks on $9 million, like, teams got pretty good about not giving longer deals. Everything just kind of got tighter. I think things are going to free up for teams. But yeah, because of that, teams have had to say, oh my God, no team is good in the league, right? Like there's like 10 okay to good teams or whatever you want to call the teams at the top. And all of them need to jockey to get the 1 or 2 good player available. So yeah, you got to get them first. I don't think that's going to continue to be the case down the road. But right now, it does feel like this year's trade deadline has very little chance. Now, Kip doesn't think it's going to be bad. He thinks there's going to be guys we're not thinking of that are going to show up. The way that Brandon Hagel got traded with term or
but he's a showman. But he's a showman. He's a showman. And you know that. He's like, hey. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Kipper's a showman. He doesn't want to live in a world where the NHL trade deadline is headlined by, a depth defenseman, right? That's not good.
Right now it's shaping up that way, but he thinks a couple guys will show up that we're not thinking of.
I hope so. I hope Kipper's right. I really, really hope Kipper's right. Okay, I'm not even going to do my last loser because we're running long on time here. I just want to ask you this. This will be the closer because we got to bring it around to Leafs. They're back tonight. They're facing your Islanders. What's the thing? This is kind of hard to vocalize, and yet it's an easy thing to understand. But what is the thing that you want to see from the Leafs over the next month that will convince you they should be more aggressive come deadline, or that they actually have turned some kind of corner as a team? Because right now, they feel very, very, very in the middle.
Yeah. They feel very, very, very in the middle. I think that's right. I think they're probably the 11th best team in the NHL. That's
about right.
Kind of where I have them right now. I want to see. I was talking to someone about what they could add, what they need, whatever. Excuse me. A lot of the things they need to add, they have and aren't getting out of guys in terms of like Tyler Bertuzzi. Can we get this guy to show us, now that he cut off his hair and donated it to cancer, can we give a fresh start for Bertuzzi where he's a guy who is an offensive contributor? Can you get a little bit of depth scoring from guys? Like, it's so boring to want. I just want to know that if this team plays well, there's something there that you're like, all right, if we add a couple pieces, we could compete. Because right now, I don't think we've seen this team really have a run of time where you're like, that's a good, solid playoff team. I just want to see everyone playing well at the same time, and I don't know what it's going to take to make that happen, but I don't think we've had much of that this year.
So I brought this up with Myrtle last week when we did Leafs at the break, and them losing Yarncroc, sneaky, not even sneaky big for anybody that really closely pays attention, but he's like 5th on the team in goals and I think 6th in points. He's been massive for them. He's been a guy that Keefe has moved around.
PK.
Right?
He might be the top-line guy in playoffs, man. He might play with Matthews.
He moves him around all the time. Now is the time, with no Yarncroc for a month ahead of the deadline, for you to really figure out what you have in Robertson, what you have in Domi, what you have in Tyler Bertuzzi. Like those 3 guys especially get a ton of focus, even to a degree. I'll say a lesser degree because he's a definite future piece, but in terms of what he is for you now is same thing with Matthew Nyes. Like, figure out if you can cobble together a top 6 that involves those guys, or if you're going to have to go out and get somebody, or how that's going to work, how it's going to operate. Because you're right. Now is the time for those guys to kick in a different gear. I'd like to see Keefe get a little creative and, say, use Domi back on the wing with good players. Yeah, I think that's the last thing we really...
He hasn't had a chance there this year, has he?
That's what I mean. Is it doesn't make sense to me that they've said all year long we want to add a depth center, and we don't... And Keefe has said it all year long with the minutes, is he doesn't trust him in any defensive situation. He doesn't trust him in close games. And the Leafs are clearly a team that's going to be playing in a ton of close games. He obviously doesn't like him as the third-line center, so see what he can do on the wing. Like, he was effective in Dallas playing with good players in the playoffs last year. I refuse to believe that Max Domi just simply cannot play in any situation with the Leafs. Like, there's got to be some way that's more creative for him to get some minutes. But to me, this is going to sound, again, painfully obvious, but anybody who follows the team is going to know this is true. The marker for me is simply going to be this. Can you build a lead and then protect that lead? Can you do those things in regulation time? Can you build a lead and protect the lead and not have it feel like a miracle when you get out of there alive? Can you start a hockey game on time? Can you score first and then not have it feel like a mad scramble or like you got an incredible night from Ilya Samsonov for you to win a game in regulation? Like, I just think
you spend so much time.
That's
I
it.
spend so much time looking at the forwards, going, can they score? Are they going to get enough goals? And when they do, that's when you turn your attention to the defense and you go, who's supposed to keep it out now?
Yep.
Like, for the forwards, you just roll over the Tavares and Matthews lines over and over. That seems to be what happens. But who goes over the boards that makes you feel comfortable on D? Even McCabe, who I love, makes boneheaded errors here and there. Riley's not a defensive specialist. So my two favorite D that I just mentioned are not guys meant for that situation. So I don't know who's supposed to go over the boards in those spots.
That's totally right. The reason why I didn't bring up the D, and I don't think you did in terms of show you something when it comes to the next month of the deadline, is you can't. I don't think there's anything that this group can do that would convince me that this should be the group going into the postseason or moving forward, that this is going to be your winning blue line. Like, they
need two bodies.
Yeah. They're just it's just a matter of, can you be good enough with the other guys? Like, in the other areas, can you be a tighter hockey team? Can you get more from those forward groups so that you actually feel like, you know what, we are going to invest draft capital, et cetera, to try to go out and get somebody that helps balance this thing out a little bit so that you don't feel as though there's a case to be made that, Simone Benoit is your fourth most important defenseman, or that you have a conversation with your friends about how much you like him every single night. It'd be a little bit better if that wasn't the case. Anyways, Bourne.
Yes.
Thank you for the time today. I'm glad you got to take in the Friday night with your kid. And thanks for doing this, pal.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a lot of fun. Good seeing you. And we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. See you, buddy.